So a bit of a backstory here. I just finished a full playthrough of Daggerfall. You can find the link to the playlist down in the description below if this is something that interests you. I did not grow up with Daggerfall. I did not play Daggerfall in 1996. The first time I touched Daggerfall was in 2024, right after I gained bravery to pursue Elder Scrolls in the descending order by beating Morrowind for the first time. As such, the eyes that I'm looking at Daggerfall here are the eyes of a modern gamer, not someone that has followed the progression of games through the 80s and 90s. The eyes that I'm using are very much used to modernity and do not carry any of the nostalgic factor. As such, this review is for people in a similar situation, and I'm afraid that those that grew up with this game and loved it may get offended. So let's start from the good. The atmosphere is very pleasant. I loved the soundtrack and the visuals went down easy on the eyes. Mind you, I was playing this game in a windowed mode, so it was a tiny window on my 1080p monitor. As such, I do not perceive any super stretched pixels, so I do not know if full screen experience would be just as nice. I've seen many games trying to mimic retro graphics in recent years, and Daggerfall just authentically has it. I mean, right now we're riding a horse around the city, and you can't tell me that this does not feel nice. Daggerfall is designed for immersion in a way that even new games have not caught up yet. We have more services than usual. For example, gold coins have weight to them and banks are a thing. Like right now, I am standing directly in front of one. This is a bank. Leaving your stuff to repair takes time. Every building has business hours. It is one of the reasons why I can't enter this building right now. It is not the right time. It is 6 a.m. The banks are not open at 6 a.m. Guards will get upset if you choose to loiter around. Though, you can choose to loiter for a while, you just can't rest here, because that counts as loitering. Loitering with the purpose of loitering, you're kind of limited to loitering for like 3 hours at a time. You can legally loiter, but you can't rest on the pavement because city rules, I suppose. Every building has an interactable door that you can knock on. Like, this building has a door, this building has a door, and this one actually opens because the voice has called out that I may enter. There are loads of different clothing options, and each option is fully modeled. If I was to find the right button and open my inventory, for example, I can unequip this and change my shirt into something else. Or why not wear that one, for example, and why not wear that instead? You'll never have a situation of putting on new armor and it looking exactly the same as your old armor, unless of course you're looking for enchantments. Then, you know, you might be weighing an iron armor that's enchanted versus another iron armor that is enchanted, but the amount of models that it has is truly impressive. Like, you can play dress up in this game. There's loads of attention to detail here that is often lacking or overlooked entirely in other games these days. Like all Elder Scrolls games, this game has readable books. Often enough, you'll find a book inside piles of treasure or on the corpses of your enemies, and it will come with a unique little story inside. These ones I had to find the bookstore to buy because my save file did not have any books carrying on me. But, for example, these are 2 entirely unique books, and they are fully written. Like, there is a lot of information here. Somebody had to sit down and write a whole bunch of little stories in order to present in this game. And some of these provide more backstory to the plot and therefore are important for the game world. Some of these are just amusing to read. Honestly, it is such a unique thing for like games to have fully stocked libraries of fully readable books that honestly, if you're playing any kind of Elder Scrolls title, I would suggest to like go ahead and read some of them, even just for your own amusement, because they are amusing. Like, this is quite a lot of content just out there, and the fact that they put this into a game that was released in 1996, considering that there's quite an amount of books that I found during my playthrough, yeah, that is definitely an impressive point. For neutral points, the control scheme is dated. It is nothing that you can't get used to, but you will find yourself mapping much more buttons than you would in a modern game. You can switch the look around in your environment to one that is more mouse-based, allowing you to at least move more like you're used to in modern games. However, even such little things like levitation and swimming will require you to have extra buttons mapped in order to move up and down. For me, that was page up and page down because I legitimately was like running out of buttons to map. Plenty of menus have their own shortcut keys for opening, and there are many interaction modes, like for example stealing or looking at a thing will not be an option on an object, but it will be an interaction mode that you will have to toggle, consuming even more of your keyboard. If you're a bit like me, then I have this on a toggle, like mouse or no mouse. Like, this allows me to view around and move like I would in a modern RPG, but for example, these are my interaction modes, which allows me to like flick back into mouse mode and like click on these buttons manually. If I remember this, from what I was told, it's better to play with minimal UI because then you get to see more of the game. So if you're playing full screen, you wouldn't like have this whole bit over here that you can just click on in order to open the menus. You would instead remember your shortcuts for the menus. I prefer having it here, even if I do remember some of my shortcuts, just because this game does have quite a lot of buttons to set and quite a lot of buttons that you can press. For a point about story, let me just stand near a story quest NPC that currently has absolutely nothing to say to me because this is one of my earlier saves and I think I have already completed the quest for her that I had to complete. By the way, this woman, you have to reach her multiple times during the story. Getting here is a bitch. There's even like a lich guarding her doors. I did not enjoy this at all, but I am now going off on a tangent when I have this whole video like written down and scripted, believe it or not. So, story is a mixed bag if you ask me. While some quests will be hard-hitting and actually interesting, such as a quest where I was sent out to find the missing prince, and instead found a heart-wrenching letter that I will not disclose in full detail as I do not want to spoil. A lot of quests that I did do left me questioning how was I supposed to know to be at this specific location, to talk to this specific NPC, to pick it up in the first place, and how was I supposed to be aware that this is a key essential quest and not a randomly generated one. For example, the Beast is considered to be an essential quest. If you refuse it or don't find it to begin with, you will not finish the main quest line. It starts when you talk to a maid at Castle Daggerfall, when you reach level 5. She stands in her own separate room, away from the important areas of Castle Daggerfall. Actually, let me load into a save that I had in Castle Daggerfall to see if I can just like spontaneously find her right now. Plus, it might be nice to enjoy something that isn't direct beeping in our ears. So while I do enjoy music in Daggerfall, it is prone to breaking. Excuse me, fine sirs, let me coming through. Are you her? Well, nobody wants to interact with me today, so this may or may not be her. This is her, okay? That is the NPC that we're seeking. However, you see how this is where she is. This like little room. The save is kind of broken, by the way. We're gonna get to that later. This is the king and queen. If you're going into Castle Daggerfall, presumably you enter through here, and then you go and you just kind of, you know, speak to the king and queen, maybe some like other courtiers, like maybe you're gonna get interested, so you're gonna be like, hey, let me speak with this guy, or let me speak with these two people. There is no point in the world where you would be like, oh, let me just find a quest essential NPC. It's gonna be behind this door in particular, and it is like a random maid. So let me continue from my script, which sometimes gets hard to find when I go on a rant about the whole thing that I'm talking about in the first place. If I was not reading the Wikipedia for the main quest of Daggerfall, I would not have assumed that I should explore the little rooms to find the maid to speak to, and even if I spoke with her, I would not have figured out that the quest is of importance and not some sort of random errand. If I refuse the quest, because you can actually do that, you can like click no thank you, after talking to the maid, there would not have been a way to get that quest back without reloading an earlier save, and I would have locked myself out of finishing the main story. So on one hand, it is kind of interesting, especially if you can like get into it. It has its own high points. On the other hand, bloody infuriating, this thing, and like you want to have a wiki open, which kind of leads to the next point, which is all about having a wiki open. So now for the bad. Let's begin with least bad and then move through the list, shall we? The game is very vague when it comes to key systems, and I would absolutely suggest reading up on Daggerfall on the wiki before playing. Like, the whole main story questline reading up thing kind of plays into this. For example, having potions is a key component of dungeoneering, as it is rather easy to game over yourself from contracting a disease or getting poisoned. However, even buying potions is gated behind joining a place like the Mages Guild or a temple and working your way up a bit, as it is not a thing that a new joinee is allowed to do. Crafting your own potions is similarly a service that has a reputation requirement, so you must be in the correct guild with the correct amount of jobs done and the correct amount of levels acquired and what is considered to be the key skills for that guild. If you're not looking up information online, the trial and error here until you find and figure out what is it that you need and where to get it would be, simply put, painful. There's no way to like enter a guild. Like, if I exited here and just, you know, entered the Daggerfall area in general. This is Daggerfall because I saved in the Kingdom of Daggerfall. Yeah, Daggerfall. So let me just find you a... Yeah, this would be a random guild. Blue things are guilds, right? Let's just get a horsey and get there. I don't actually know where we're going. Obviously, I haven't been there before, because if it would state the name of what it is. Because it is not stating the name, it means that Myrta has never visited this place in her playthrough. Please give me my feet back, thank you. I like horses, but I don't like horses that much. What time is it? It is 7 a.m. Guilds do close as well, by the way, so let's just loiter around for 3 hours so that I can enter and figure out what I entered exactly. Oh, okay. This one is special. It doesn't want to open, so let's let them sleep in. I know that Mages Guild likes sleeping in until like 11 a.m. They call it a shop, but it is a blue building, which means that it is a guild. I don't know who these guys are. I'm gonna assume that this is like a knightly order. It probably is a knightly order. Like, if we leave now and check our map, yeah, the Knights of the Dragon. So let's say I want to join the Knights of the Dragon. I have not a fucking clue what they offer as services upon like reputation up. I had to Google that information up, and I worked backwards from My chat warned me that I will need potions, and I did need potions. Therefore, I need to join a temple or the Mages Guild and reach these reputation requirements in order to at the very least be able to purchase potions. A lot of the game is like locked like this, unless you're joining all the guilds, and you can't really join all the guilds. You have to like select one temple, for example. You can't join all of them. And trying to rank up in every single one, and it's not like ranking up is super easy. You have to like do several quests for the guild. You have to make sure that there's a month break in between your rank ups, because otherwise the game will refuse to rank you up. You have to make sure that you're meeting the level requirements, which are gonna be these things, and well, it can be hard because your primary, major, and minor skills might not really match with the, well, levels required by the guild. In which case you kind of waste your time trying to level those skills up because you can't really gain a level up from them, so you have to kind of match the guilds to your skills to begin with. So unless you're really doing that trial and error, like, for God's sakes, that would take forever to get to like the right information. The game doesn't give you these things. It honestly tells you almost jack shit. It feels like Wikipedia is a required article and is kind of part of the game for you to play the game. I don't know if previously, like in 1996, if manual has sufficiently filled this space. I'm pretty sure that they also had like a guidebook for the game that you could buy separately, I think. Don't quote me on that. I just know that's something, either the manual or the guidebook had walkthroughs for story dungeons, and you kind of really needed them, and probably had a lot more information than that. So I don't know if those two supplementary things kind of filled in the gap that Wikipedia is filling in now, but unfortunately, a shame, but the game doesn't have all the information that you really need in order to play this game properly. For this point, I have chose to record a little bit of my stream in order to be able to show you off one of the more regular dungeon layouts. Which leads me to my point of dungeon design is absolutely terrible. Even when the dungeon is not randomly generated, and in here I was doing story dungeon quests, I would argue that the person making the dungeons was either a bit of a show-off or a sadist. The 3D map is very hard to read, but to make matters worse, most dungeons will have plenty of interactive elements, such as some switch that will just be stuck in the wrong position, preventing you from continuing forth, or a teleporter that will take you to a completely different, isolated section of the dungeon that you'll then need to get back from. Add secret doors and objects that are interactable in one dungeon and not another, and what you will be looking at is a claustrophobic madness navigational maze that will suck up hours of your time and leave you exhausted every single time when you choose to traverse it. The closer you get to the end of the game, the more this design decision ramps up as well, with the last quest outright having you levitate up and down the whole dungeon box looking for secret doors with the correct levers and feverishly clicking on random gravestones with little to no feedback from the game about what you're doing is working or not. Bigger is not always better. This is a great example of a map that is super big and confusing, and something that will absolutely take you like 2 to 3 hours to like explore. You have no idea how many times I was like streaming this. I have like 20 parts, so in total I did like 60 hours for this playthrough, around there. There were so many times when I would like enter a dungeon, and after like an hour my legitimate like panic response starts kicking in. I joked that Daggerfall dungeons would both count as this weird, uncanny liminal space and like this infinite horror maze, because sometimes the enemies will also be making sounds that are like really, really horrible. Like, I learned to recognize skeletons by their screaming, but also look at this. After a while, you just forget where you are and where you're going or where the exit is. If you don't have like a recall spell, which once again, by the way, spell making and spell buying is gatekept behind joining a guild and ranking up until you're the right rank in order to get that spell, and then you also have to be the right level on the spell school to even make it castable. I've spent quite a long time just like making the recall spell castable so that I can at least go back to the entrance of the dungeon that I came from. I know that might be a bit weird seeing like me and hear completely different me narrating over this, but this is a good dungeon diving segment that I am able to showcase here. Anyway, it was something that I had to work hard to just be able to recall to the entrance of the dungeon. And without it, you have no idea how many times I came out to a dungeon with like a preset idea of, I'll navigate this one correctly, I will remember where I'm going, I will leave loot behind so that I know how to backtrack myself back to the entrance. And you just are not able to do that after like a couple of 4-way crosswalks too many. And at that point, you just don't quite know where you're going anymore, and every direction that you run in is just the same wall over and over again, with the same crosswalks over and over and over again. It becomes like an actually panic-inducing thing. The one thing that I will say is, let me just bring the video all the way to the beginning. You see this like little bitty at the like top left of the screen. There's like this yellow cube that represents the map. Effectively, it's the mini map of the map. And then there's a red dot and a green dot. The red dot is you, the green dot is the exit. But considering that the map is 3D and it goes up and down and around, and some places reach and others don't, that doesn't tell you a lot. You could be standing like directly on the exit dot, but be at a completely different elevation, and just getting to the right elevation might take you 20 minutes from where you're currently at. The dungeoneering aspect of Daggerfall is both a very major part of Daggerfall and complete hell. For this segment, I will also be using one of my streams that I've done. That is the last stream. It is me finishing Daggerfall, and it ends on a very, let's say, appropriate note. An appropriate note to like the worst quality of the game possible. Because the worst thing about the game is that the game is riddled with bugs that makes it incredibly, and I do mean incredibly, frustrating to experience to play. Majority of your playstyle will be very much influenced in trying to play around bugs that you really notice when you switch to a different game and stop doing it. Like, this is literally just me trying to save after finishing the game. It crashed. It crashed. And it did that not... This is not the only time it crashed. It did that quite a lot. The most notable bugs for me were memory error crashes to desktop from looking at the wrong part of town, sometimes at the wrong lighting. Like, there might have been too many buildings in one spot and just the game went and crashed on itself. Getting soft locked, dying from exhaustion trying to arrive at a town. Jump acceleration going off the rails and blasting you through walls. Clipping into walls trying to climb stairs, falling through the terrain by doing as little as saving at the wrong time, already finished key quests firing up again, key NPCs refusing to speak with me for no reason, locking me from being able to finish the main storyline, said key NPCs, then magically telepathically communicating with me once I arrived at a completely different area and was nowhere near close enough to actually trigger their conversation game. What the fuck? The NPC dialogue box not matching up with my quest log and outright giving incorrect information, among many other bugs. I had avoided carrying much gear on me to try and avoid save corruption and memory errors. Everything down to the way that I moved and where I saved was influenced by me being hyper-conscious about how easy it is for this game to go wrong, and it would be especially jarring when I would switch to another game and I would trust a wall to be a wall, where I could jump freely without the fear of getting launched through the ceiling, where I could just trust NPCs to work properly and give correct information. If you play anything outside of Daggerfall, prepare for whiplash when it comes to other games just working, when this one plainly does not. And that is like the worst quality of it possible, just the amount of times and how badly it will break on you. For closing points, I will be calling to you from the directly end of the game, which is where this save is at, so we have very, very nice backdrop. Overall, Daggerfall feels like the systems that it is based on could go a mile deep if said mile was not stretched 10 miles wide and was not literally breaking at the seams due to the developer trying to bite more than what they could realistically chew. I can recommend the game if you want to come in, wander around, and maybe vibe. If you try to complete the full experience of what Daggerfall was supposed to be, I guarantee you'll go half mad fighting the game to just agree to move in the direction that you're moving in. So if you want to vibe, go ahead, ride a horsey, enjoy the passage of time in game, and seeing such wonders as snow days. That was actually really wonderful. When I did see some snow days, even the music changes. It does feel quite magical. Marvel at the music and the visuals. If you like actually completing the story of the game that you're in, please go get yourself something modern. While nothing will quite be as ambitious as Daggerfall was, its ambition is also what made it so incredibly frustrating to play. If I was forced to rate it, I would be generous and would give it a 5 out of 10. That's me being generous, and I know that that sounds really, really cruel. However, if you ask me to go through its main story again, start to finish, I think it isn't nostalgia that you would invoke in me, but a feeling of PTSD. Perhaps some things we left in the past, with good reason. Daggerfall, despite its many redeeming qualities, I think is one of them, just because of how hard it can be to get through this thing. Like, can I just... Okay, well, at least that jump worked. This kind of jumping is dangerous to do. Just the one thing that I was talking about. Like, they want you to do some platforming, they will place down... There we go! Goodbye, world! Goodbye, Daggerfall! And now, there is a button combination, Alt 11, that's supposed to place you down onto the last brick that you were standing on. In this case, it did not work. That is how easy it is to bug out Daggerfall. I can do it on demand. I can showcase it live on a video during recording. I don't need to go and look for this footage. I can make it happen because that is how easy it is to break Daggerfall. You will do it all the time. Daggerfall is just broken. Jesus Christ, I went on a rant. I did not mean to. I know that this game matters so much to some people. There is a legitimate, passionate community. Some people ported it to Unity even. But Daggerfall in its core design is too ambitious to work. Daggerfall in its core design is broken. It is really, really stretched thin, and it is very, very hard to play because of it. It is jank that is on a completely different level, and only the most patient of patients of people would ever end up completing it in 2024. It has its beautiful qualities, but this is, in its core, what Daggerfall is. I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope I haven't angered you too much. I know that this is some people's like childhood game. I want to go through more retro games. I want to give them a good, honest look. I have been taking suggestions. I want to do Elder Scrolls Arena as a thing as well, perhaps even Elder Scrolls spin-offs. But in general, I'm taking suggestions for any game that's made like pre-2000s. 1999 and down is an entirely valid, year to suggest. So if you want me to do anything in particular in streams and then maybe give you my opinion in a review like this, please feel free to leave a comment about it. I want to thank my Patreons. This is where the whole Patreon thing will display. I can't see it myself while recording because I am not editing my own recordings yet. I will in a second when I stop recording and I plop all of this into editing software, but once again, I am going on a bit of a tangent here. Thank you for all my Patreons. If you enjoy seeing gameplay, streams, reviews, and similar videos with some occult on the side, sorry, this is like my only channel, it gets very multi-purpose uses, then feel free to subscribe. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Tell me how I did, tell me what you agree and disagree upon. I know that some people will be like, oh, you haven't played Daggerfall Unity and that is the problem. And it's like, yeah, but Daggerfall Unity is also not the Daggerfall that was released in 1996. It's a complete recode of Daggerfall. It functions functionally different. It's like modern Daggerfall. It shouldn't really carry the same name as such, and therefore, this is the DOSBox Daggerfall review. Like, maybe the different Murta that played through Unity version would have a different opinion on Daggerfall. So, maybe if you like Daggerfall, consider giving that a go, because I don't know how that would go, because I do know how DOSBox version goes, and that is what the review was. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I'm gonna be able to see you another time if you choose to return to my videos. Bye-bye.